Hello everyone, my name's Cliff and welcome back to my channel. This is Cliff's Dark Gems. Today I'm going to be reviewing one of my favourite books of all time, an epic adventure of the imagination that is Weaveworld. Please stay tuned. Now when it comes to Clive Barker, there are two things that stand out in my mind above everything else, and that is his absolutely gorgeous prose. His writing is just so beautiful and descriptive, and also the fact that his imagination knows no bounds. He goes places where no other authors go. On every single page you just find something interesting, something completely original. And that is so true with Weaveworld, and pretty much with all the books that he's written. And I've read pretty much everything he's written. I have spoken about Clive Barker on two other videos, which I will show you towards the end of the video. But as I've said before about this author, he is visionary, he's an artist, he paints the most imaginative, gorgeous art, paintings. And when he writes about good and evil, and angels and demons, and monsters and creatures, and he does so in such a way that is completely and utterly unique, often subverting ideas, turning them on their head about what is good, what is evil, and we're going to go into that a little bit when we talk about this book. First off, I would like to give some trigger warnings. There are, I think, two instances in this book where there is serious rape, and not just ordinary rape either, but it is the sort of thing you can skip through if it's a big problem for you. So what is this book about? Well, basically you've got a world within a world. You've got these magical creatures called the seer kind, and they live in this place called the fugue, and they have to be hidden away in this carpet because they're being hunted by mysterious creature, entity that is called the Scourge. Now this has been hunting them and destroying them, and its basically sole purpose is to destroy all of them, and in doing so that will be the end of magic on Earth, the last vestiges of magic on Earth. Now towards the beginning of the novel we're introduced to two main protagonists, the first one being Cal. Now Cal is a dreamer, and he's not happy with his lot in life. He's not happy in his job, and one day while chasing one of his, I think it's his father's homing pigeon that gets away, he ends up falling into this carpet and experiencing absolute wonder and magic, and he falls in love with his world, and he is drawn back into the story at a later period. The other protagonist is Susanna. Now this carpet is being protected by human protectors, and the last one, his grandmother, is dying, and she reaches out to her granddaughter Susanna because she's the last one left that can basically protect this carpet. And so therefore Cal and Susanna meet, and of course there's some seriously nasty antagonists, and we're going to go into that a little bit later. Okay, let's talk about the setting very quickly. Where does the story take place? Well, it takes place in our real, mundane, boring world. In this case it's Liverpool and London, and also in this magical, wondrous carpet in the fugue, where there's wonder, there's also danger, but the two are complete opposites to one another. And what's very interesting in this novel is that it does jump between the two. So some of the action takes place in the real world, and some of the action takes place in this magical world, and at times it overlaps. Now I was thinking to myself, because I've been reading a lot of reviews on this, thinking about it, why did he do that? Why is this constant, almost juxtaposition between the real world and this magical world? And I think it's because when you put the two together, it's like light and day. So when you've had time in the real world, boring and dull and grey, and you go back to the magical world, it just makes that brightness even brighter. I may be wrong there, but I think that's an interesting observation, and I know it's been done in movies as well. I think about the movie Coraline by Neil Gaiman, where you have the real world and then the other world with the other mother. And the real world is raining all the time, it's nasty, it's this and this. And in the other world, it's bright and it's just gorgeous. I don't know if Clive Barker did that on purpose, but that was just an observation of mine. I think it's could possibly have something to do with that, by making the mundane world even more mundane and making the magical world even more wondrous. Okay, let's talk about the characters. Now, as I said, there are protagonists and there's antagonists, and I'm only going to mention some of the main ones because there are such a huge cast of characters. Now, this is an incredibly difficult novel to talk about because it is so layered, it's so textured, not just with the characters but with the world and with all the mythology and stuff that happens in this world. But let's talk about the main characters. First of all, we got Cal. And as I mentioned, Cal's he's a dreamer, and he falls in love with the character. He falls in love with the carpet and with the world. And it's very interesting that we spend most of the book seeing the world through Cal's eyes. And I think Clive Barker did that on purpose because he wants us to see the world through Cal's eyes, because he is in love with the carpet. He's enamored with the carpet and the world and the wonder. And the other characters not so much. Then we got Susanna, who, as I said, is a granddaughter of the last guardian, and she has a lot of strength within her that she doesn't know about yet. At the time when we meet her, she's quite pragmatic, but his characters do change throughout the novel. Now, I've seen criticisms that the characters are two-dimensional, they're flat, and it's true that they're not as fleshed out perhaps as some of Stephen King's characters or Robert McCammon or any other number of authors. However, what Clive Barker does so well is that he makes each character so interesting with their own traits, their own personality, and there is such a range of characters that come into the story that are completely unique and interesting, and in ways that even if characters are seen as good or as evil, it's never as clear-cut as that, because Clive Barker often in his books he kind of subverts the idea of what good is and what evil is. So there seems to be a lot of grey areas. Now let's talk about some of the evil characters. There is one terrifying villain called Immaculata, and she is almost like a witch, and she was one of the seer kind at some stage, but they kicked her out. And she has sworn revenge against this seer kind, last magical people. And what she did, she was one of 3 sisters in the womb, and in the womb, before she was born, she strangled the other 2 sisters with her bare hands, killed them, and bound them towards herself. Now, when I say she's truly despicable, it's not just that she's despicable, she's absolutely disgusting. And these 3 sisters, I think the one's called Magdalena, I can't remember what the other one is, a hag, but they are absolutely revolting. And the way they kill and the way they are absolutely terrifying. And the other awesome villain is Shadwell. Now, he's a human and he has this magic jacket. And when he shows this, he's a salesman, and all he wants really is just power over things. It's a typical salesman. And when he opens his jacket, whoever's looking into his jacket thinks they find their heart's deepest desire. And they become enslaved to Shadwell. So he's a very, very interesting character. And then finally you get, I would say, another antagonist, but he's called Hobart. And he's a human as well. And he's a police officer. And he's one of those authoritarian police officers that don't care about anything but authority and power and control. And I think those are things that Clive Barker absolutely hates. And these 3 are obviously out to destroy the carpet or own it. So Cal is really the only one who wants to, who's in love with this world and wants to protect it. Susanna obviously as well, but we see most of the story through Cole's eyes. And what I like about these characters, I said they weren't fleshed out, but they all have their own character arc. So during the story, they change. And sometimes even the evil characters, towards the end, you'll see them in a very different light towards the beginning. So there's nothing touch and dried with Clive Barker. It's not something that you expect. You need to expect the unexpected with this man. So what did I like about this novel? It is a magical ride that he takes you on. It is full of good versus evil, fantasy, dark fantasy, lots of different ideas, different mythologies. That's what I'm saying. It's so difficult to talk about this book. Mythologies, brings in religion, he brings in the idea of fairy tales and all sorts of stuff. But what he does so well is he takes it and he flips it on its head. So you can't expect what you're going to expect if you start reading a fantasy novel. The fantasy tropes are completely subverted. The characters are subverted. Everything is his unique way, his unique take on the fantasy genre. And I found that highly original and very, very, very interesting. He also writes a lot about, there's a lot of blood and guts, there's a lot of gore, but there's also a lot of magic and wonder. And there's sex, and there's death, and there's violence, and there's thrills, and this book has got pretty much everything you would want in a novel, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, I love the characters, I love the setting, I love everything about it. Okay, so what did I not like about this novel? Well, criticisms have been laid against the novel in terms of the characters being two-dimensional. I say that's rubbish. Yes, they maybe could have had a little bit more time with them, fleshing them out. But they all have their character arcs, which are very interesting. And I would argue with all the other characters, interesting characters that he introduces, I had no problem with that. Second of all, people say that it's too long, and that there could have been parts cut out of it. I didn't think anything was wasted. I enjoyed even the lulls between the storms, because it just made the storms that much more powerful. And also I didn't think anything was wasted. I thought it was just an awesome, awesome novel. Okay everyone, so that's my review on Weaveworld by Clive Barker. So this gorgeous cover at the back as well. Please give me some comments in the comments below if you read this book or if you plan to read it. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And just check out my other videos on Clive Barker, which I will link. And basically, thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. Keep those pages turning. Cheers.